Most people think focus problems start with a lack of discipline or a lack of motivation, and when those explanations don't hold, the next step often feels obvious. Maybe something is wrong chemically, maybe the solution has to come from medication. But that assumption skips over something important, because if focus were purely a matter of chemistry, it wouldn't fluctuate the way it does. There are moments when your mind feels clear, sharp, effortless, and those moments don't always come from trying harder or from taking anything, they just happen, which raises a different question: if focus can exist naturally, even temporarily, then what actually creates those moments? Because the contrast is hard to ignore. On one side, you have days where everything feels slow, you sit down to work, and your attention slips almost immediately. You try to bring it back, again and again, but it doesn't hold, and over time, that creates frustration, not just because you're distracted, but because you're putting in effort and not seeing a return. So the idea of an external solution becomes more appealing, something that overrides the problem, something that forces the result. But here's where things get more nuanced. Focus isn't just about forcing attention, it's about the state your brain is operating in, because your brain isn't always in the same mode. Sometimes it's scattered, reactive, easily pulled in different directions. Other times, it's stable, organized, naturally aligned with sustained attention, and that shift doesn't always come from willpower. It often comes from conditions, internal and external, things like rest, environment, mental load, and even subtle inputs you might not notice. This is where the conversation begins to change from "how do I force focus?" to "what creates the conditions where focus happens more easily?" Because once you look at it that way, you realize something important: medication isn't the only path people explore. Some start adjusting their environment, reducing noise, changing how they work. Others pay attention to timing, working with their natural energy instead of against it, and increasingly, some experiment with sensory input, especially sound, not as a distraction, but as a way to influence mental state. At first, it seems too simple to matter, just audio. No effort required, but the brain is constantly responding to patterns, rhythm, consistency, structure, and certain types of sound can introduce those elements in a way that supports a more stable internal state, not by forcing focus, but by reducing the resistance to it. The real issue isn't that focus requires medication, it's that people are often trying to perform in conditions that don't support it, and when those conditions improve, even slightly, the experience of focusing can change, sometimes noticeably. This doesn't mean every approach works for everyone, or that simple solutions replace complex ones, but it reframes the problem. Focus isn't just something you push into existence. It's something that emerges when the underlying system is aligned, and that alignment can come from more than one path. If you want to explore this deeper, there's a structured breakdown in the description that looks at how different non-medication approaches are being used and what to pay attention to. And if this kind of perspective helps you think about focus in a more practical way, you can subscribe for more content like this, because sometimes, improving focus isn't about adding something stronger. It's about understanding what was missing in the first place.